Hi guys, Nick Reveles here. If you're even an occasional ticket holder for San Diego Opera, you're aware of our new Detour Series. Now this is a series of operas that we produce in alternative performance spaces other than the San Diego Civic Theater. The point of the series is to familiarize audiences with the fact that opera is not monolithic, that there's no one way to experience opera, i.e. in a very large theater to show off big spectacular productions with big spectacular voices. Opera can also be intimate. Opera can be performed outside. Opera can be small. Opera can also be presented in theaters that only seat, 300, 500, or 1,000 people. And opera can be about contemporary issues or about traditional themes like love, politics, power, romance, but with a decidedly contemporary viewpoint. Composers are creating operas today at a quicker rate than at any time in history. For the most part, these composers are realizing that for opera to continue to thrive and evolve, it's going to have to be less expensive, number one, and it's going to have to meet audiences where they are. Opera's going to have to deal with subjects that people care about, that touch people in new and relevant ways. That's what our Detour series is all about, and that's why so far we've presented pieces like David T. Little's Soldier Songs and the Peter Brook version of The Tragedy of Carmen. Those operas were presented in the relatively intimate Balboa Theater, a venue with only 1,300 seats, a much different experience than what we typically get at the Civic Theater with its 3,000 seats. Now, to me, one of the really exciting things about experiencing opera in a smaller venue is that we have the opportunity to feel the power of the operatic voice, not just hear it. The sound of the trained singing voice vibrates the air, and in any theater you can feel those vibrations in your body right here. You can have that physical response much more intensely when you're physically closer to the singer in a small theater, and I love that. That brings us to the opera As One, which opens on November 10th at the Joan B. Kroc Theater at the Kroc Center in Rolando. The theater holds only 500 seats and it has excellent acoustics. It'll be a real test of that physical response to the voice that I'm talking about. But it's also going to be an opportunity to experience an opera about a very contemporary issue, the transitioning of a person from male to female. The transgender experience is certainly something that you wouldn't normally think of as subject matter for an opera. But why not? Every opera, every human story is about transitioning when you think about it. And the more intense, the more dramatic the transition, the more effective the story is for us, the audience. Verdi's La Traviata isn't just about the doomed love between a young man from the country and a world-weary courtesan who happens to have a fatal illness. It's also about the transition of the main character from life as a party girl to falling deeply in love, and the consequences of that transition. It's also about the transition of a loving father from protective, angry patriarch to sensitive, supportive friend. We wouldn't have opera if it wasn't for transitioning, that dramatic device that we call the dramatic arc of a character. It's of the very essence of drama. It's what creates conflict in a story as other characters connect and react to the transition of the main character. Can you think of another form of transition that's as intense or overwhelming as the transition from one gender to another? It's an experience few of us can imagine, but it's something that many of us are becoming more and more familiar with as acquaintances, friends, and family come out as transgender, and we're confronted with our feelings about what that means. The opera As One by composer Laura Kaminsky and librettists Mark Campbell and Kimberly Reed is a sensitive, heartfelt, sometimes funny, sometimes serious tale about just such a person. In what I think is a stroke of theatrical genius, the character Hannah is portrayed by two different singers, a mezzo-soprano and a baritone. The baritone is Hannah before, and the mezzo is Hannah after transitioning. To quote the composer, Ms. Kaminsky, The opera hits the core issues of every human being has to confront. Who am I? How do I become myself? What struggles do I have to go through? How do I have honesty? How can me changing affect the people in the world around me? It's specifically about Hannah, but also a story everyone can relate to. The story is taken loosely from the experiences of the co-librettist, producer, director, and filmmaker Kimberly Reed. Kimberly began life as Paul McCarrow, who grew up a typical American boy, even to the point of becoming the high school quarterback and valedictorian. The intriguing story of her coming to an understanding of her true nature and her transition from male to female became the subject of her award-winning documentary film entitled Prodigal Sons. It was from the film's success and Miss Reed's telling of her own story of transition that the opera takes its power and its universal application to the role that transitioning has in every person's life. In the next podcast, I'll bring you more about the story, about the words, about the music, and about the production of As One that'll open on November 10th. Till then, my friends, all the best. I'll see you at the opera.